I hope everybody's having a wonderful, wonderful day. Today we're talking about Charlotte, how to ruin a city. Because what if Charlotte is quietly making every mistake that actually breaks a city, from sprawl to sky-high prices? Some of the choices that are shaping this place look a lot like a blueprint for wrecking the city altogether. And so live, I want to walk through the moves that could sink Charlotte and whether it's too late to actually fix them. And so what we're gonna overview is, first, the planning choices that are quietly working against the city, at least in the short term, how the cost of living has got out of hand, what too much of the wrong type of development does to the city, the everyday problems that nobody wants to own here, and then whether or not Charlotte can still turn it around. And so we're going to cover quite a bit of ground here pretty quickly, and it'll be a fun one. So let's start with Charlotte, built for the people who leave. We are the fastest growing city in America, and it's built for just about everybody except for the people who are actually staying. So how fast is Charlotte actually growing? Right now, and I have a few videos. We're trying something new today. We've got a few videos that'll be fun. Charlotte is the number one right now in the U.S. for population gain, with over 20,000 people net added in a single year. And so how does everybody actually get around? Well, 75% of people drive by themselves, 2% currently take transit, and the average person, or the average driver, spends 41 hours and $734 in traffic each year. But people are betting on Charlotte harder than almost anywhere, which is interesting because you don't become number one in growth by accident. And so there was an interesting video I saw here when Jamie Dimon, the CEO for JP Chase, visited Charlotte around this time last summer.
We turn now to a WCNC Charlotte exclusive. The man called America's most powerful banker is in Charlotte today. CEO Jamie Dimon says that Chase Bank is trying to make inroads in a city built by Bank of America. He sat down with WCNC Charlotte's Ben Thompson to explain how he hopes Chase and Charlotte grow together.
Most bankers don't get this rock star reception, but most bankers aren't Jamie Dimon.
What do you guys want to talk about?
The CEO of JP Chase in South Park Thursday, where the bank is celebrating its 1,000th branch under a recent expansion.
What makes Charlotte so appealing?
Well, first of all, Charlotte's been a great growth town. And as you know, it's the headquarters of some of the great banks here. It's been growing over time. Here you have schools and universities and businesses and research, and that's what makes it so appealing. Plus, I like being in the backyard of our toughest competition.
Dimon is widely seen as one of the most powerful men in America. In all, the firm has roughly 5,000 branches across the country, the most of any American bank.
What would you say to somebody who says that seems a bit antiquated giving online banking today?
Yeah.
What would you say?
1 million people a day visit those branches. And I always say that people want to visit their money.
Still, Chase faces an uphill battle in a city that is home to headquarters for Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Truist, and Ally.
I think that was pretty much the key part of this particular clip. The other one that was interesting was this piece about the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance, because again, we have so many people that are actually moving here and a very fast-growing economy.
Warning the future of Charlotte's economy is coming into focus. The Charlotte Regional Business
Too fast. Let me.
Warning the future of Charlotte's economy is coming into focus. The Charlotte Regional Business Alliance touting the city's strong and growing economy at its annual Economic Outlook meeting. WCNC Charlotte's Destiny Richards is live this morning in Uptown, sharing why there is growing optimism for what's ahead in 2026. Destiny.
Regional business leaders say the Queen City is entering a new chapter of growth, with jobs, investment, and big transit projects all shaping what's ahead. Now, the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance reports the region is on a record-setting trajectory. President and CEO Robert McCutcheon says economic development is surging, with more than 7,000 jobs and $1.4 billion in potential investment already in the pipeline. Local business leaders say this momentum sets the stage for a strong 2026. David Longo of CBI highlighted the number of new projects currently in the works and the county's transportation referendum as drivers of new jobs and investment.
We are coming off of major project announcements across our region. working with our economic partners, 15 announced projects since July 1st, totaling over 4,500 jobs. And we celebrated a monumental win, the Mecklenburg County Transportation Referendum.
CEOs from Compass Group, Advocate Health, and Bank of America all say transit and infrastructure will determine how many companies and workers Charlotte can attract. They expect 2026 to really be a pivotal year as transit plans move forward and more companies choose the Queen City. Live in Uptown, I'm Destiny Richards, WCNC Charlotte.
Destiny, thank you.
Very fun, very fun. And one of the things I wanted to point out, not what I wanted. So one of the things I wanted to point out here too, right now, like one of the biggest challenges right now is that the entire city is car dependent, which I'm historically not super big on mass transit, but I have seen the light a little bit and I can give my engineering justification for why that is. But what you're looking at right now is a map of all the projects that are up and coming here in about the next decade, funded by the transportation referendum, which was a 1-cent sales tax that got passed this past fall, I think in November. So currently, right now, you can see here this blue line, that is the Lynx blue line, and that gives service for light rail, or metro, or whatever you want to call it, from University City down through Noda, Plaza, and into Uptown, then down through South End, and then all the way down to close to Pineville. There are planned expansions to extend the blue line through Pineville and down into Ballantyne, and there's already, like if you saw the Ballantyne Bowl, there are there's reserved land. Not Ballantyne Reimagined. There's some really cool photos. So it's this walkable urban core that they built down in Ballantyne, and so they also have land set aside for light rail stations down in Ballantyne Bowl. So, which is also home to Oro, which is I think 26 stories. It's the tallest high-rise luxury apartment building, or luxury apartment high-rise, I should say, in South Charlotte. And we're not sure when that, because I don't believe the Blue Line expansion was part of the traffic referendum funding. But what was the purple line you see here, which is going to be the Lynx Silver line. Why they made it purple, I don't know. But this is the proposed path and stops. Some of this is contested, especially around Matthews, due to funding, and that's an ongoing discussion. But what is going to happen for sure is this is the airport here, and it's going to be connectivity from the airport into the Charlotte Central Transportation Hub. You can see the gold line, which currently exists today, and then the gray on either side is the future extension for the gold line, and then the red line, which is also funded as well and will help alleviate a lot of the congestion. You know, you see the traffic all the time. I'll pull up the map just to show you. There's so much traffic at all hours. Like right now, it's mid-morning. There should not be traffic, but there's always yellow and red on I-77 North. And if I show you the typical traffic at, let's say, 8 a.m. along here, or let's do 8:15, 8:30, 9 o'clock. Why is it? That is not what the typical traffic looks like. Let's do 5 o'clock. That'll show you. Okay, that's typical traffic right there. It's red all day, every day, yellow all the way up to Mooresville and beyond. It is slow. It is partially because of the express lanes, but the express lanes also help you get around it. Because you can see here, this is one way, one side, so you got 2 express lanes, and then you got 2 regular lanes. But the regular lanes back up, it's all stop and go. The express lanes are usually pretty quick, but they get expensive quick, because if you're going end to end on the expressway, you can burn $30 pretty easily. Now, going back to the map, because I wanted to show you one more thing on there. If I lost my tab. So the red line, there is currently bus service is one of the more one of the highest ridership routes for the bus service currently, but it's going to be replaced with the actual light rail line, which will give service to Mooresville, Davidson, Cornelius, Huntersville, a handful of stops down in Huntersville, and then also inside the city there as well. So for people that are living up close to the lake or in the suburbs, they're able to commute down without having to fight that I-77 traffic, which I think is, especially once we have a more solidified timeline, it's going to have a huge impact on property values and also on how I advise people on what's going to be a good fit for what they're looking for in terms of overall lifestyle if you don't have to fight the I-77 traffic. Anyways, so that's going to be a huge development for the city. But again, the focus of this video overall is what are some of the things that Charlotte has done or mistakes that they've made to really break the city in different ways. And so the second one is Charlotte had some communities and some neighborhoods in the city center, and I hear my dad talk about this too, where especially some of the African American communities during the 70s, 60s, and 70s just got bulldozed over and never really got replaced the way that they were supposed to, which is very, very unfortunate, very sad, and it is a part of the history here that needs to be acknowledged. And so there's a couple of different ones in particular. One that I found, let's see, where was it? This was a piece by the Charlotte Observer from 7 years ago that I found very interesting and gave a good overview of this. In the 60s, towns across America carried out urban renewal projects.
Change is no good if it's not for the better. Some change ain't no good at all.
This is where we orchestrated in this community. This is known as Brooklyn. This is where black folk live. This is where the churches were. This is where our businesses were.
The neighborhood of Brooklyn, well then it was ideal because everybody looked out for everybody's children. Didn't nobody have nothing, but it was close. You could sleep on the front porch. You could walk, get up and go anywhere you want to go at any time of night. You didn't have no problems.
Charlotte's Brooklyn neighborhood existed for about the first 2/3 of the 20th century. It's the area that today is the government center, Marshall Park, NASCAR Hall of Fame, all of that in the center city.
If anyone knows Tom Hanchett, I would be interested in chatting with him, or maybe having him on here sometime. Anyways, back to the video.
It was most of the Second Ward neighborhood. As segregation hardened, became the most important African American neighborhood. Brooklyn was the center of civic life. It was where the Black Main Street was, roughly where today's Martin Luther King Boulevard was. It was a beloved neighborhood.
We played hopscotch in the street and played ball in the street, kickball and softball. All that was played right over there. And when I close my eyes, I can see all of that.
We had dry cleaners. We had grocery stores. We had meat markets. We had shoe shine stands, barber shops. Brooklyn is a wonderful place to live. We used to make alleys on the front porch and never forget.
You had poor people, you had middle class people, and maybe even a little more affluent people.
Congested streets, inadequate parking, retail vacancies. There's only one answer. That is a master plan of development. It's do or die for downtown Charlotte right now.
During a period of time, there was this urban renewal that came through, and I often heard it growing up as a child as being referred to as black removal, because that's what I witnessed, that black folk were actually displaced from the Brooklyn community, which was uptown Charlotte, and moved to the west side.
When they said they was gonna tear down Brooklyn, and they start putting up posters letting you know, then the next thing you know, they're shutting down everything. Time to go.
One of the things I also find interesting, especially just with learning more about the city and the history and, you know, things like this, because, again, it impacts the city in a very real way today. One of the biggest ways being, we'll talk about it later, but like the I-77 project was met with so much skepticism or is being met with so much skepticism and mistrust and distrust, and probably pretty fair too, because it's because of things like this that the community has gone through, that when people see other things where the city or the again the city or the core city planning, like when they make proposals or the state makes proposals, stories like this are part of why there's so much distrust in the community about whether or not those are actually going to be good for the community.
The idea was if you wipe out blighted neighborhoods, you'll have the perfect city. And unfortunately, they
Also, I found Tom Hatchett on Instagram, so we'll see if we can't get this this dude on here sometime, because it would be interesting to learn more about some of these, just some of the evolution of Charlotte's history.
defined blighted neighborhoods as neighborhoods where there were a lot of absentee landlords, a lot of rundown housing, which often was African American neighborhoods because of redlining and other things that kept African Americans from easily buying homes.
The property was significant. People felt that Brooklyn was a shanty town, had all shotgun housing, it was blighted. Well, there was a part of Brooklyn that certainly had low-income housing or houses that wasn't very affordable. But guess what? It also had houses that had multi-bedrooms, wrought iron fences, really two-story homes. They were owned by African Americans. So there was a variety of price point housing in Brooklyn.
Okay. I feel like a stranger in my hometown. There's so much change. Because I can't even find my way now when I come down here. Let's see. On this side of the street, the Savoy would have been right in there, the Savoy Theater. I don't see anything here that remotely helps me to remember where anything is. None of this is. If that were 2nd Street, we would have made a left there, and about right in there, the Savoy Theater. And where all those gray buildings are would have been buildings, apartments. And on down there would have been black businesses, cafes, tailor shops, hairdressers.
In the last few years, which will come to fruition as we move forward, is this Brooklyn Village project, which is intended to give honor to that history and to create something that won't look anything like the old Brooklyn, but will have some of the vibrance of having stores, homes, offices, all in the same place.
Dennis Lacaria Sr.
And one of the important things about that too, which I hope they touch on here in the video in a moment, is mixed income housing, because from an urban and city development perspective, mixed income housing, for a variety of different reasons, if you're curious, drop comments down below, but it is one of the most effective tools for creating really, really strong, long-term stable communities.
Assistant to the county manager will be giving you an update on the Center City redevelopment projects, includes Brooklyn Village.
So going into the components of the master redevelopment agreement, 106,800 square feet of retail, 532,000 square feet of office, 395 housing units minimum. 30% of the below market units will be dedicated to 60% AMI or less.
You know, where there's still some emotion around the history.
Which that was a little bit of like buzzwords and mumbo jumbo, but what he was saying is that 30% of units will, so 30% of the rental units will be reserved for housing that will be below market rent, so subsidized housing, and it will be for people that are at 60% of the median income or below. So again, for the people that historically would have been displaced by projects like this, or people who have been displaced to other places within Charlotte from gentrification, they would have a place where they could rent and call home here.
Brooklyn, I respect it, and I think it's foolish to try and, like I said, to try and do anything that like attempts to fix that. Is that specifically for the former residents of Brooklyn? It's not.
county saying we're going to rebuild Brooklyn. We can only replace those facilities, but the spirit is what I'm pushing for. That as we build, that we build on the spirit of Brooklyn, what it was.
And it'll be really cool to see what Brooklyn Village actually grows into. I will be doing more coverage on that coming up soon, but that's my overview for this. So there is, again, new stuff coming to Charlotte in the Brooklyn neighborhood that is intended to pay homage to the original Brooklyn neighborhood. However, this was not the only story of demolition that the city did that has had a profound impact on the city and will have a pretty profound impact on the city going into this next decade. So one of the big ones was a community called Earl Village that was dozed back. It was 409 homes demolished back in 1995. I tried to find some interesting photos, videos, things for this. It was honestly really difficult. There's a couple of somewhat well-known rappers that were originally from here. Earl Village, however, is now First Ward, and so in 1995 it was demolished. They did rebuild, however, it was only 220 units that ended up getting replaced. And let's see, where was it? So First Ward was also historic black neighborhood. Became home to another example of segregation in the early 20th century. Where was it? There was a couple of things here I'm trying to find. Because it was related to some of the urban renewal projects of like Brooklyn, and they ended up basically doing it here. However, it was supposedly managed, but it was the Hanchett community historian said Earl Village did not solve any of the relocation challenges. In fact, they tore down more existing housing in First Ward to make way for Earl Village than were built back. And so it seems like First Ward basically went through multiple iterations of getting torn down. With Earl Village in place and after a lawsuit by First Ward residents who said the city had not provided adequate replacement housing, the urban renewal of First Ward marched on. Among casualties was Hotel Alexander, which the city purchased for less than $46,000 or $268K in 2025 dollars. By then, Alexander had fallen by the wayside. Civil rights legislation in the mid-60s that ordered the integration of businesses ironically made the hotel unnecessary. The big bands, entertainers, traveling men, the mainstays of its business haven't been back, said a Charlotte Observer article. The homes on the opposite side of McDowell Street were already boarded up to make way for what would become the Brookshire Freeway section of I-277, named for the mayor who took the sledgehammer to Brooklyn. Yeah, so there's been a history of just destruction, unfortunately, without adequate building back. And so again, that's one of the reasons why there is so much mistrust from a lot of the community here as to some of the newer development, and why it's also so important that there is adequate and proactive communication on things like the new I-77 project, which we're also going to talk about here in a minute, because I found some interesting footage from a decade ago. You won't believe some of the stuff I uncovered, honestly. Just as the creation of Earl Village caused a loss of housing in First Ward, his death nearly left half of its residents displaced. For folks who live there, there's still some anger, Hanchett said. I really want to get Hanchett on here at some point. Oh wait, no. So First Ward is a mixed income neighborhood currently, not a warehouse project. And after they cleared the land, you free up room for what Charlotte really builds, which is part of what they cleared at least some of this land for, which was the highways. However, and this brings me to that next section I was talking about. So one of the other mistakes that Charlotte has made through the development process is they built the city around the roads and around cars, and then in one particular instance, Spain owns a very, very large, very important highway for us. A large section of I-77, or at least the toll lanes, was bankrolled and is now owned by Sintra of Spain, at least for 50 years. It was, both at the time and now after the fact, heavily opposed by people that are locally here, and this was at one of the hearings by Charlotte City Council from some of the opposition back in 2015.
Yes, I'm here tonight to talk about the planned I-77 toll road project. There have been 10 resolutions.
Which also, to clarify, this is separate from the more recent I-77 project, which has also been met with even more distrust and opposition, probably for good reason, because there was not a lot of clear communication at the time when this was pushed through, and a lot of people are still very frustrated and angry about that. But anyways, I'll get back to the video.
Resolutions passed up and down the I-77 corridor against the I-77 toll road project. We have spoken at the CRTPO meeting twice. The last meeting we had Greg Wallace, people representing all kinds of NASCAR teams, businesses that are saying this I-77 toll road project is going to kill our businesses, and we're going to consider picking up and moving out of this area. Now, I do want to say this. It's going to sound a little controversial. In my opinion, these toll roads.
And also, one of the, so the I-77, for people that don't realize, it's so important to Charlotte as a whole, not only to the section that it's directly on and the people that live right off of that section, because there's so much NASCAR and also a lot of heavy manufacturing up in Mooresville, north of Mooresville, down in the city, that all like distributors and things, like a lot of heavy trucks need to be able to get through there, and it's very important. It's a very important access way.
Are racist. Why would I say something like that? Who's going to be riding on these toll roads? Minorities are not going to, lower income, single mothers, poor, lower income folks like myself. These toll roads are going to be made for the really rich, mainly white folks who live up on the lake that can afford it. And after the toll roads go in from Charlotte up to Lake Norman, that's the hook, that's the bait. After that goes in, they're going to go from Charlotte all the way down to South Carolina. And those toll roads are just going to be for those who can afford it. $20 one way from Mooresville to Charlotte. How much is it going to be from Charlotte to South Carolina? You're going to ask people to pay.
Which, going from Charlotte to South Carolina, is now the hot topic 1 decade later.
Maybe $40 from Mooresville to South Carolina, and then maybe $40 back in one day. Who can afford that? Let's be honest. Let's be honest with ourselves. Who can afford it? Now, the CRTPO will be voting on the tip for the PDOT 3. Ms. Lyles is the representative there. And I would beg you guys to please ask her, Ms. Lyles, if you'll do it on your own, that's great. If you guys come together, maybe you ask Ms. Lyles, instruct her, because the folks up and down this corridor, Mecklenburg County, Huntersville, Cornelius, Mooresville, they've all spoken out against these tolls. They've passed resolutions. Mr. McCory says it's the CRTPO. The CRTPO says it's Mr. McCory's job. The thing is not done yet. They haven't started digging on it yet. And what's going to happen is the poor people are going to ride in the 2 lanes that are already there. That's where the poor people are going to ride. That's where I'm going to ride. I'm going to ride in those 2 lanes with all the big trucks. And then the rich people are going to go flying past. Just cruising on by. Hey, y'all, how's it going? That's not fair. That is not fair. These roads are made for those who can afford it. I like rich folks. I work for them. I go swing a hammer. I do tile work. I do stuff like that. I'm not trying to spark class warfare here or anything like that. But it's the wrong deal. The businesses have said they don't want it. People aren't going to be able to afford it. And this is just Lake Norman's problem. No, it's going to go from that's first. Then it's going to go to South Carolina. Then it's going to go around to Valentine. And then it's going to go out Independence. We need this to be stopped right now.
So from a city planning perspective, and one of the interesting insights that from some of the more recent research, going again back to this map here, One of the things that honestly from a city planning perspective is kind of genius about this is it's true. Again, mind you, that video was from before all the insanity that we see today. And you can see here at 5 o'clock, it is everybody sitting in traffic, unless you're on the toll lane. It is true. Toll lane's always flying by, and it's not cheap. It is not cheap. It's more when you really got to get going somewhere, but of course you're not going to be doing it every day. But what's important to note here is induced demand, which I've talked about a few times, but is very important to understand, just touching on it briefly, is a phenomena that is widely documented where whenever there's new roads or widening highways fail to reduce traffic congestion within just a couple of years, all that extra capacity gets filled up, primarily because it lowers the time cost of traveling. It makes it easier to travel, right? Which is the whole point. But because of that, then more people start taking that, and then you fill out all the roads. And then downstream, especially going into a city hub like Charlotte, now you're putting more strain on all the other roads too, and so it starts to compound. There's also an induced demand phenomena with public transit or mass transit as well, but it's the opposite, where the more people that ride a specific route, the better the service gets because they add more trains on the same train line, they add more stops, and so as a result, you actually have a virtuous spiral instead of a downward spiral, where transportation gets better as a result of more ridership. And so on the 30-year time horizon, again, it's not comfy, but it was kind of genius because when you look back at this transportation referendum that got passed, the red line mirrors I-77, and that is going to be, for the majority of people, unless you got to get somewhere quick, it is going to be the easiest way for a lot of people to travel, and that would only be possible if the traffic kind of sucks, which is not the best way to do it, or it's not the most comfortable way to do it, but it's important to understand. And the thing that is still kind of wild though is Sintra of Spain. Basically, I believe they're private equity. Sintra Spain company. Spanish-owned global infrastructure developer headquartered in Madrid, specializes in the design, financing, and operation of toll roads, highways, and parking facilities. And so what they did with the I-77 project is they bankrolled it essentially, or a large part of it, and they have a 50-year lease to collect all of the toll revenue from I-77 northbound. From uptown going up to, I believe it's around Troutman somewhere, and you might wonder what did they put up to be able to get that? Like, how'd they earn that, right? How much money did they really put up? So Sintra I-77 funding. They put up. No, that's for the old one, not the P3 model. I want to say it was like 1 billion. See, they put up 650 million, 26 miles. How much money did they invest for the 50-year deal? Directly invested $248 million in private equity. And secured a majority of the 650-ish million. Ferrovial records the total ultimate investment for the managed lanes corridor. It's basically $700 million. I'd be real interested in seeing, and mind you, that is in 2000 and I want to say $2014, $2015. Yeah, we'll dive into that more another time. So it's clear that Charlotte has been betting on highways, but betting on highways only works if you actually finish it. Many of the roads here have a ribbon cutting, or they break ground. They have the gold shovels out to break ground, but they never break out the gold shovels to finish the ground. So it seems like we have non-stop construction, and it's just always going here. Independence Boulevard has been becoming an expressway since the 70s, and it is still not finished. It is also one of the worst designed highways in the entire region, and the giant loop around Charlotte, 485, if we zoom out a bit, let me show you on the map. So the loop around Charlotte, believe it or not, the entire southern portion of it was not finished until recently. It started and was only finished, I believe, about 20 years ago. It took over 40 years start to finish just to finish 485. And the roads that did get finished changed the region. So especially because of the southern section of 485 being newer, what you'll notice when it comes to real estate is like the Palisades was only built in 2015, I want to say. It was like I think it was finished out in like 2020, 2021, 2022. It's a giant master plan development, and it's beautiful, don't get me wrong. Like you can see, we just dropped into a house, I guess. You can see the beautiful construction here. I think this is a community center for Toll Brothers. I don't want to be in there. Take me outside. There we go. Yeah, so that's the community center there. And it's nice. Again, it's nice. There's a lot of it. It's huge. And it was built out pretty recently because nobody cared about this dirt until pretty recently because it was impossible to get to because 485 didn't exist. Same thing with Ballantyne. Ballantyne's very, very new. It didn't exist until there was a massive rezoning that made it possible in 1995, I believe. And so, the majority of Ballantyne was built in the 2000s and 2010s. Matthews and Mint Hill have a little bit more history, a little bit more established history, but similarly, Mint Hill, because it was like kind of far and 485 wasn't finished over here yet, it still is like kind of the boonies, kind of rural. I call it rural curious because it wasn't super accessible, especially into Uptown. That's why some of these closer, especially South Charlotte neighborhoods at the time were and still are some of the more affluent neighborhoods, was because of the easy access into Uptown and how some of these other towns like Mint Hill and Matthews did not have that, yet at least had 74 for Matthews, so it was relatively easy to get in. But 27, again, you can see it's been a nightmare with traffic, and if you don't have 485 to be able to get to some of those main roads, you can imagine how difficult it would be to commute into the city. However, thanks to them continuing to expand roads, people have gone further and further out to find a place to live. And ironically, it was only recently that Charlotte even made it possible for us to build more housing in the city, because for I think more than a century, the entire city was zoned single family only by default, and so you couldn't build multiple units in residential neighborhoods. And so this finally changed in, I believe it was 2023, when the UDO got passed, and that is the Uniform Developmental Ordinance. Let me pull this up. And this is pretty heady, so I won't get too deep into it. But it's important to know about Unified Development Ordinance. This thing is 500 pages long. There's a lot to it. But basically what it did was it made it possible for the first time ever to build up to 3 units, and with some exceptions 4 units. If there was an affordable housing unit that was one of the 4, you could build up to 4 units on any lot within certain specifications. And so, but prior to this, again, that wasn't possible. And so the majority of the growth just got pushed further out. Like Valentine, again, was one of those key areas where a lot of the growth after that massive rezoning in the 90s occurred. Basically overnight it went from nothing there to 17,000 people working there and commuting there, and in some cases living there as well. And one of the things that's very interesting is because Valentine is trying, well, and a lot of the suburbs are trying to be a little bit more urban friendly. They're essentially retrofitting it with Valentine Reimagined, which is their long-term plan to be able to make it into a walkable urban core. And I touched on it earlier. I'm trying to see if so this is all built. This is available today. You can go and there's restaurants and things there. Oro is that 26-story, that's the one right there, 26-story high-rise luxury apartment building. And then they also, so they tore out the golf course. And this right here is the Valentine Bowl, where you can, they got live music and concerts and things. And it's a really cool venue. There's a big lake behind it, or large pond, I don't know what you call it. Anyways, and that sits where the 18th hole of the golf course used to be. And they're doing a lot of, they're adding roads and redesigning this in order to make it much easier to get in and out of, and also to live here too. They got walking trails. It's pretty cool. I got some videos coming out very soon. And also Stream Park is so cool. It's in front of the hotel, and I wish they had more photos of it. I have drone footage somewhere, but it's this park that's along like basically a creek, stream, whatever. And they have walking trails over there, lots of nature, and a whole lot of like, you can kind of see what that is the playground. It's so cool. So cool. I'm a kid at heart. Anyways, so the Uniform Development Ordinance ended single-family only zoning in, I believe, 2023, which is earlier than most Sunbelt cities, because Sunbelt cities, we love our single-family, we love our roads. We love our roads and our cars. But Charlotte is working to change that a little bit, and there's projects like this where the suburbs are chasing having their own walkable core. I forget the name of it. There's also one coming in Matthews soon too, or maybe it was Mint Hill. It was somewhere over here. I'm gonna do a video on that at some point as well. But aside from banning density and making the sprawl basically required until very recently, Charlotte also had I'm trying to remember what I was going to say for this section. Made it to where basically every corner looked the same. A lot of the development that happened, you just see the same mills getting converted into breweries, and then gray box homes and gray box apartments. And there was, in the early days of the Charlotte boom, a lot of building that didn't have a ton of character. In recent years, there's been even more building as the city's continued to grow. In 2024, we added about 29,000 apartment units, which was the largest apartment expansion of any U.S. metro. However, unlike if you heard about how Austin got crushed by that, Austin, Texas, Charlotte did not have that same challenge because we have continued to have people move here and stay here. 15,000 opened in 2024. We had another 29,000 units under construction in 2024. And South End's housing grew 135% during the 2010s. But to be fair, Charlotte is actually successfully building housing. We do have more supply here than anywhere else, which is how we've been able to fight runaway rents. And so it's still pretty affordable to live here, even though purchasing has continued to be a little bit more challenging. Just with how much growth we've had, like even if it's not the prettiest, we need density. And so some of these buildings that went up did help to solve, especially the shorter term, just needs for people to have a decent place to live. And long term, many of these developments are, especially as Charlotte has been more and more attractive to invest in, and investment has flooded in here. We have seen just cooler and cooler developments. And the city's also been pickier about what they are approving because they can be, because everybody wants to be here and invest here and live here. Now, the downside to all this investment, another mistake that Charlotte has made. So we are known as the city of trees. However, we're losing a lot of the trees. Isn't that a meme from the Lorax? Lorax trees meme. It's also not a meme. I can't find the meme that I'm thinking of. We'll come back to that. But let me pull up here. Charlotte trees canopy. This was 5 years ago, and they have since then published a new canopy preservation policy.
Charlotte has long been known for its lush urban forest, but a new study shows how hard it will be to keep it that way. A study by the University of Vermont and the nonprofit group Trees Charlotte found that the city lost 8% of its tree canopy between 2012 and 2018, much of it in large forested tracts that were raised for development. Trees still shade 45% of the city, but the canopy is threatened, the study said. Some of the old Charlotte neighborhoods known for their trees, including Myers Park and Dilworth, saw some of the largest canopy losses. All that makes the city's long-held goal of achieving a 50% tree canopy by 2050 even harder, especially in the face of expected population growth. This year, the city began work on a tree canopy action plan that's expected to recommend ways to strengthen Charlotte's tree ordinance to stem the losses.
Stem the losses. I caught that. I don't know if anybody else caught that. That had to be planned. So this is actually integrated into the UDO we talked about earlier. And so we did see the canopy fell from 49% to 45% over a 6-year period, which is insane. That's 250,000 trees. So just think about this. If we took all those trees and lined them up end to end, that means that it was those 250,000 trees over that period of time would be the equivalent to losing 3 football fields of trees a day. That's crazy. The city, some people have said that the 50% by 2050 goal that the city set is unrealistic. However, Charlotte, why am I typing? Charlotte Tree Ordinance, tree, or maybe it's the tree plan. No. Don't worry, I'm not gonna do death by PDF today. We might have some fun ones, but not that. Tree canopy preservation program. Here we go. And they are doing real things to try to preserve the trees. So I'll give an example. I've told this story before, but it's really key to this issue. One of my friends is developing a duplex here in Charlotte. And in the development process, there were a handful of what they call, I forget what they call it. It's it's for like the oldest, largest, prettiest trees. They call them like heritage trees or something. I'll see if I can't find. Anyways, I think it was heritage trees. They had 2 of them on this lot. And so in order to position the duplex and then be within like the setbacks and things that they had to do in order to get approvals and permitting from the city, they were either going to have to change their plans altogether, or they were going to have to change the location and the orientation, but then they were going to have to get like variances. It was a whole thing to try to preserve these 2 trees. And so they were like, well, there's really not a good way to preserve the trees, and so let's look at what it would cost to get them removed. To get 2 trees removed, and mind you, the majority of this is not labor, because again, one of the partners is the general contractor, so they already have the labor. Not including the labor, or including very cheap labor. It was going to be 20 grand to remove 2 trees, because there's a tax in place where if there's any sort of trees on the property, especially these heritage trees, which are the oldest, the most mature, like you hear about like the Myers Park trees. It's iconic because they're these beautiful giant oak trees, and so these heritage trees. That's not what we were talking about with my buddy not the Myers Park area. It's a different area, but it still was a couple of these large, older, beautiful trees, and so the city's tax was, I think, going to be about $12,000 in order to get the permit to remove those 2 trees, and they still were going to have to replant them. So they had to plant new trees in place of the old ones in order to help preserve as much of the canopy as possible. But you think about it, you get rid of one of these big, old, giant trees, and then you plant small trees in their place, you are still losing canopy even if you have the same number of trees. So that is one of the reasons why, especially with the huge influx of people, we've seen the canopy fall from 49% to 45% in 6 years. But one of the things I had as a question was, how does that compare to other cities? So if you look at some of the like Fort Worth tree canopy percentage, I got a developer that's moving here from Fort Worth. Fort Worth is only at 19%. All the people that move here from Dallas and Fort Worth, Texas, talk about how there is like so many trees here and there's no trees in Texas. In the DFW tree canopy, the majority of it is, just as an example, in one forest. I forget what it was. Let's see. It was DFW tree canopy percentage. So 32% for Dallas, but it's majority of it's in one forest, and so the city itself has really, really low tree canopy. We'll look at a couple other cities just for reference. Miami tree canopy percentage. 17% in the city of Miami itself. New York City. 23%, which also includes Central Park. Without Central Park, I can't imagine what it would be. It'd be almost nothing. We'll look up one more. I love San Diego. I wonder what San Diego, I almost said San Diego, Texas. So you know this is live. No, it is not San Diego, Texas. San Diego, California. 13%. That's kind of crazy. City's climate action plan sets aggressive goals to increase this to 28% by 2030 and 35% by 2035. I would love to see how they're going to do that. That's a lot of trees. I would love to. Oh wait, I'm not sharing my screen. My apologies. That's what it was supposed to be. So anyways, Charlotte has worked very, very diligently to try to preserve the tree canopy. The Tree Canopy Action Plan 2.0, or TCAP 2.0, is the long-term strategy to actually preserve this. They put a lot of effort into studies and figuring out like what's the most effective way to really incentivize this. That's where a lot of these new policies have come from. And they also, I thought this was really cool, they also opened a new, here's what I was talking about. Heritage trees, 30 inches or greater, DBH, diameter, base, wonder what that stands for. Anyways, They also have, because tree care is expensive, they have a grant program to help make it more affordable, especially for people that have been here a long time, might be retirees, might not, not balling, might be on a budget, and they are trying their best to, again, make it easier for people who are actually living here and have trees to keep them healthy so we can maintain that beautiful canopy that Charlotte is known for as the city of trees. Now, after we've talked about losing the shade that comes from the trees, the other thing that comes from trees is paper. I don't know how I'm going to transition this, so I'm freestyling. Trees make paper. Paper is money, and the bill is exploding. So those trees are becoming bills. I don't know. Your house is worth more. Congrats. So is your tax bill. So Charlotte has seen property values go up substantially during COVID. One of the charts I love to always show here. So the median sales price for Charlotte and Charlotte MSA has gone up from back in 2016, a decade ago. It was like 180, 170. Peak of the year was like 200, and that was insane, right? Now, bottom of the year was 400. Top of the year is like 4.25, 435. And so, as a result, we also have seen tax bills go up too. The residential values jumped an average of 58% since in 2023, since the reevaluation, the prior one in 2019. And a whole county of homeowners all got new assessments all at once. That happens every 4 years. It's literally how we do things here in Mecklenburg County. Higher values means that your equity jumped and your tax rate, or your tax bill jumped generally a little bit. But what's interesting is because they balance the budget, the tax rate also gets reset after the revaluation. And so the bill will go up a little bit. The value goes up a lot, but the tax rate every 4 years actually goes down. And so this is one of my fun facts when it comes to real estate in Charlotte. If you buy during an off year, you will actually, as a result, be paying more in taxes disproportionately because your property value has already gone up, because it's based off of whatever you bought the home for. It has already gone up more than everybody else's, but the tax rate is the same as everybody else's because they add up all the property value and then calculate the tax rate. So if you are fully valuing your property and everybody else is partially valuing their property, you're going to pay more in taxes than you technically should be. So if you purchase in a revaluation year, which we're coming up on right now, then you actually save money on your tax bill. Fun fact. So where am I? Let's see. So everybody is coming together, paying their tax bills to make the city what it is, keep the lights on. But many of the people that have not paid any taxes, the people who just got here, are inheriting the city. I need to come up with a better transition for this one, but how about this? Well, the people who have previously owned property are the ones that have paid for the city we have today. The people that are freshly moving here are the people paying for the city we'll have tomorrow. If you ask 10 people at brunch where they're from, nobody will say Charlotte, because we're the city of transplants. We're the transplant city. Is anybody even from Charlotte anymore? Because you hear people talk about how it's a unicorn if you meet somebody that's actually from Charlotte. And So 46% of North Carolinians as a state were born out of state, which is up from 23% in 1980. And Mecklenburg County has the most New York-born residents in the state at about 88,000. So you throw a stone here, and you're going to hit somebody that is originally from New York. It's 1 in 10, I think. But the transplants are the economy, and newcomers bring jobs. They come here for jobs. They spend a lot of money. They bring money from and equity from other places. And they are the lifeblood and the energy of the boom here in Charlotte. And the fun thing, I think, is that so many people move here and decide to stay here. I was one of them. Everybody here is one of them because we have one of the highest stick rates of any metro in the U.S. A lot of people move here and decide to stay here. There are other cities like Detroit that do not have the problems we have because people are not dying to move to Detroit. However, we do have a city here in Charlotte, a city of people who are dying to move here, and that is the best problem to have, in my opinion. I love Charlotte. It's a great place to call home. Beautiful city, beautiful people, wonderful souls. Now, all these people that are moving here also need a way to get around, and guess what we don't have yet? So another mistake Charlotte has made is we have been debating, I call it rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. We have been debating the perfect transit system for the past 20 years. The blue line is the only thing we've been able to agree on so far, and I'll bring back up my transportation map here. The blue line is the only thing we've been able to agree on so far, which again runs from University down through Uptown and then down all the way to just shy of Pineville. The silver line got cut in half after going through funding and revisions and things, and it got pushed out a little bit. The first piece that will be built right away is going to be service here from the airport over to Uptown. The Gold Line streetcar is currently servicing where you can see here on the yellow, and it is slated to expand up Beatties Ford Road and then also down Central Avenue further as well. And then the red line is also one of the things that's getting prioritized, which will help to substantially alleviate traffic on I-77 northbound. And then eventually we're expecting the silver line to go down to Matthews and beyond and west into Belmont. For the blue line has been incredibly successful. Billions in new development have sprung up along the line. The appetite for easy transit has been proven out that Charlotte has people both moving here and choosing that already live here that choose to take mass transit, and it really is a template for many of these other mass transit projects that are going to eventually be built. It's just going to take some time. Now, when the trains that you need aren't here yet, you need a plan to figure out how you're going to get around in the future. That is, again, not the best transition. Yeah, we'll roll with it. So, what was this? Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. Give me 1 second here. Oh. Okay. Now, while you're waiting for the trains to show up, you got to pay for them. And so we're going to be talking about another thing that Charlotte has done to make this happen. So we had to come up with a whole lot of money for all of this. And so how do we do it? The transportation referendum. So it's a $25 billion promise, basically, funded through the highest sales tax in the state. So there was a 1 cent tax added in Mecklenburg County, which over 30 years is providing about $25 billion in funding to build all this stuff, and then also add more bus service and continue to improve roads. However, the good side about this is this time we actually have funding. Like, this is real money. This is real funding for being able to build all this transportation. And last November at the polls, voters approved the dedicated funding stream. So it's not just a plan on paper. It's not just a proposal. This is real. It is happening. Bus improvements are going to land within just a very short period of time, and the rest of the rail improvements are going to start over the next 3 to 5 years, and then at least the red line. When is Charlotte's red line light rail slated to be completed? I don't want to tell you wrong. Somewhere between 2034 2037. So we're expecting to start seeing here in the next 10 years red line and some of these other commuter rails, which is very exciting because we're going to start to see the positive impacts of some of this stuff here within just a few years, and then over the next decade it's going to really change the face of the city for the better. So So there's a lot of things that Charlotte has messed up. I'm the first to say it. I'm the first to acknowledge it. So it's interesting that after all of that, Charlotte is still where everybody is moving, and here's why. So people keep coming. Again, we are number 1 in the U.S. for population gain. We have the second largest banking hub in the U.S. What does that mean? We have, behind New York, we have more assets under bank management here than anywhere else. The cost of living here is still substantially cheaper than the Northeast. And are the mistakes that Charlotte has made fixable? For the most part, yes. Again, we just voted to fund transit and zoning issues that will help to reshape the future of the city. Driven primarily by mom and pop investors, and just people that actually live here and are part of the community. And so, if you're moving, buying, or selling, like, what matters most to look at here? Well, homes are about double the values that they were a decade ago. So it's been a very, very strong performing market if you are owning here or thinking about owning here. The commute corridors have already seen continued development to keep improving the infrastructure that's here. And just overall, we have some of the coolest development of any city in the U.S. That's expected to continue. We have real solid plans, again, both for mass transit as well as a lot of these. Like, follow me on Instagram. I'm doing a bunch of short at Lucas Roller, just like my name. Let me see. My name's on here somewhere. Yeah, there. Just like my name. You can see it on there. Right there. I'm doing a bunch of short, focused, like Instagram reels and things on these new projects that are coming to Charlotte, because the city has a lot of really cool stuff in the pipeline for development that is not only expected to continue. There's so much of it, and it's picking up speed. And it's funded, whether it's privately, publicly, public projects, private projects, private-public partnerships. There's so many good things happening here, and that has only increased in rate of speed over the last decade, and I can't wait to see what the next few decades have in store as well. That's it for this one. If you are thinking about moving soon, you can call, text, or WhatsApp anytime. That's what I'm here for, 980-449-3750. You can also scan the code to book a call with me. If for whatever reason that's not working, because I've had some weird stuff with my calendar recently, just text me or call me, whatever is easiest. And if you are trying to find the best areas for you as you're doing research, trying to figure out where in Charlotte has what you're looking for, has the accessibility, the amenities, the types of homes, all that sort of stuff, I put a ton of time into the Charlotte Areas Quiz. This is the 4th version. Even if you've taken it before, take it again. And this will, you can either scan the code or tap the link below, and in just a few quick questions you can get insights about what are the areas that are going to really match what you're looking for and help expedite your research process. My name's Lucas Roller, your favorite realtor here in the beautiful Queen City. Thanks for watching. If you got any questions or ideas for future live streams, drop them down in the comments below because I read it. I appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Have a great rest of your week. Take care. Bye-bye.